The story, Khamkha, meaning without cause or unnecessarily, follows the harrowing experience of Adeel Ahsan, a 25-year-old accountant who finds himself framed for a murder he didn't commit. Adeel worked for Ramzan By Traders, a company that ran sophisticated psychological scams involving stock market tips. When Ramzan By targeted a wealthy widow named Shazlin to defraud her of her savings, Adeel decided to intervene out of empathy and personal affection for her. On the night of February 14th, Adeel visited Shazlin at her luxury apartment to warn her about the scam. He explained how Ramzan By manipulated 40 clients by giving half buy tips and half sell tips to ensure a 100% success rate for a small group, thereby building false trust. Shazlin thanked Adeel, mentioning she had already withdrawn 500,000 rupees, 5 lakh, from the bank but would now refrain from investing it. Adeel left the apartment around 9:15 p.m., unaware that he was being watched. The accusation and evidence. Shazlin was found dead shortly after, and the police arrested Adeel based on several pieces of incriminating evidence. The poison: she was killed by potassium cyanide, found in a teacup in the drawing room. Fingerprints: Adeel's fingerprints were found on the teacups and throughout the drawing room. Witnesses: the security guard confirmed Adeel was the last person to visit her before her death was discovered. Motive: the prosecution argued that Adeel, knowing about the cash, killed her to steal the 500,000 rupees to pay for his sister's upcoming wedding. The legal defense famed lawyer Mirza Amjad Baig took the case, believing in Adeel's innocence. During the trial, Mirza dismantled the prosecution's case using 2 brilliant arguments. The chemistry of cyanide: the prosecution claimed Adeel got the poison from his friend, a jeweler. Mirza pointed out that while jewelers use sodium cyanide for gold cleaning, the victim died from potassium cyanide. The Superman logic: potassium cyanide acts so fast that a victim cannot even lift a finger after ingestion. Mirza argued that if Shazlin had drank the poisoned tea in the drawing room, it would have been physically impossible for her to walk to the bedroom where her body was found. He famously asked the court if the victim was Superman to have flown from the drawing room to the bed after being poisoned. This proved the crime scene had been staged to frame Adeel. The true culprit. Mirza's investigation revealed a conspiracy between Ramzan By, a shady lawyer named Ijaz Chaudhry, and Afzal Hussain, who was the uncle of Shazlin's late husband. Mirza presented photos in court showing the 3 men meeting to plot how to seize Shazlin's inheritance. Under the pressure of the evidence, the truth came out. Afzal Hussain had entered the apartment after Adeel left. He poisoned a chocolate and gave it to Shazlin. After she died instantly in her bedroom, he moved the teacups and added poison to one to make it look like she had died during her meeting with Adeel. He then stole the cash and pretended to discover the body to lead the police toward Adeel. Thanks to Mirza Amjad Baig's sharp legal mind, the real murderer was arrested, and Adeel was honorably acquitted.
I want you to imagine a scenario for a second. Think about your normal, everyday life. You wake up, you go to work, you try to do the right thing.
Right, just going about your business.
Exactly. Now imagine you discover that someone you know, someone you genuinely respect, is about to step into a massive, life-destroying financial trap.
Oh man, that is an awful position to be in.
Right, and you don't have to intervene. In fact, intervening puts you at significant personal risk. But your conscience just won't let you stay quiet. So you go out of your way, you stick your neck out, you warn them, and against all odds, you actually succeed.
Which is a great feeling. You save them from total ruin.
Yeah, you drive home feeling that rare, profound warmth of having done a purely selfless, genuinely good deed. But then imagine waking up the next morning to the police literally kicking down your door.
That is terrifying. Just a complete nightmare.
It really is. By the end of that very same night, that singular act of kindness has mutated. The person you saved is dead, and your good deed has somehow been twisted into making you the absolute prime suspect in a locked room murder mystery.
It completely shatters the fundamental assumption most of us operate under.
Well,
You know, the idea that if you behave ethically, the universe will generally leave you alone.
yeah, that karma will protect you.
Exactly. You step up to be a guardian angel, and you end up sitting in an interrogation room staring down the death penalty for a crime you didn't commit, all while the detectives slide this mountain of flawless physical evidence across the table, all pointing directly at you.
And that terrifying, incredibly isolating premise is the foundation of our deep dive today. We're exploring a brilliant, genuinely thrilling legal suspense story from Pakistan called Khamkha, written by Mirza Amjad Baig.
Yeah, and the title itself tells you everything you need to know about the existential dread we're about to unpack. Khamkha translates from Urdu, roughly, to for no reason or unnecessarily.
Which is such a haunting title, really.
It is the perfect thematic anchor for this entire narrative. It captures the sheer absurdity of the protagonist's nightmare. He isn't dragged into a life or death battle because of a dark past or some fatal flaw or a desire for money.
Right. He's just a normal guy.
Exactly. He is dragged to the gallows for absolutely no reason other than his own basic human sympathy.
So our mission today is to take you through this incredible labyrinth of a story. We are going to untangle a web of circumstantial evidence that honestly seems completely foolproof when you first hear it.
Oh, it really does. The police case is incredibly tight.
We're going to dive deep into the mechanics of one of the most brilliant, psychologically devastating financial scams I have ever come across. And finally, we're going to examine a courtroom defense that is so logically rigorous, so deeply rooted in actual chemistry and biology, that it will completely change how you view physical evidence.
You're going to see an absolute masterclass in critical thinking. The defense attorney in this story demonstrates how a narrative can be entirely logical, completely supported by physical facts, signed off by the police, and yet be 100% false.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start by looking at the man who gets caught in the dead center of this storm. Who is our protagonist, and what is his state of mind before everything falls apart?
Let's pull up the dossier on Adeel Ahsan. Adeel is 25 years old. He's an educated, diligent young man with a Bachelor of Commerce degree. He is working as an account manager, essentially the lead accountant, for a trading firm in Karachi called Buy Traders.
I'm assuming, given the premise, he's not exactly living a life of luxury.
Far from it. He comes from a very modest, incredibly hardworking middle-class family. His father, Ahsanullah, runs this tiny shop selling stationery, doing basic bookbinding, and making photostat copies in the Chandni Chowk area of Garden West.
Which, for context, is a bustling, densely packed residential and commercial area in Karachi.
Right. And his mother, Tassin Fatima, manages the household. Adeel is essentially the primary breadwinner for this family, but the most crucial detail here is his younger sister, Rahila. Rahila is scheduled to be married in October of the year this story takes place.
Oh, wow. If you understand the cultural context of South Asia, you know that a sister's wedding is an absolute titan of a financial and emotional responsibility.
It dictates every waking moment of his life. Adeel is operating under the crushing weight of securing his sister's dowry and covering the wedding expenses. His salary at Buy Traders is just 4,000 rupees a month.
Which is, not a lot.
Not at all. Now, depending on the exact year this takes place, 4,000 rupees was a survivable wage. I mean, it kept a roof over your head and food on the table, but it offered absolutely zero margin for error.
You can't just have a bad month.
Exactly. Saving for a major traditional wedding on that income requires an intense, almost punishing level of frugality. Every single rupee is meticulously accounted for.
So we have a guy who is educated, deeply devoted to his family, and working himself to the bone to fulfill his societal and familial duties. He's the textbook definition of a decent, responsible young man. But he spends his days in an environment that is the exact opposite of decent.
That's the tragic irony. Buy Traders is located on I Kundragar Road, which you can think of as the Wall Street of Pakistan. It's the financial heart of Karachi, lined with banks, corporate headquarters, and trading floors.
Sounds legitimate enough on the surface.
On paper, absolutely. Buy Traders is a respectable multi-trade company. They deal in government prize bonds, which are essentially state-backed lottery bonds that don't pay interest but enter the holder into massive cash draws.
Right, I've heard of those.
And they do some legitimate stock exchange investments, too. They have a physical office, secretaries, ledgers. Yeah. But the owner, a man universally referred to as Ramzan Pai, is using this polished facade to run a highly lucrative, intensely dark parallel operation.
I always find it fascinating how legitimate businesses are used as scaffolding for criminal empires. Because Adeel is the accountant. He isn't just answering phones, he's looking at the ledgers. He sees the raw numbers.
He sees everything.
Which means he sees exactly what Ramzan Pai is actually doing behind the prize bond facade.
You can hide your activities from your neighbors, and you can hide them from the police, but you cannot hide the cash flow from the guy whose sole job is to reconcile the accounts. Adeel knows for a fact that Ramzan Pai is a major player in illegal match fixing and bookmaking.
Wow, okay.
But more importantly, He sees the massive underground money transfer operations known as hawala and hundi.
I've heard the term hawala used in thrillers and news reports,
Yeah.
usually associated with terrorism funding or cartels. But how does it actually function on a day-to-day basis in an office like Pie Traders?
It's basically an ancient, trust-based system for moving money across borders without moving any actual physical cash, and crucially, without leaving a paper trail in the formal banking sector.
So how does that work in practice? Let's say someone wants to send money.
Let's say a worker in Dubai wants to send money home to his family in Karachi. If he uses a bank, there are massive fees, terrible exchange rates, and a permanent record.
Plus, it can take days.
Exactly. Instead, he goes to a hawala broker in Dubai and hands him cash. That broker calls someone like Ramzan Pai in Karachi and says, hey, give this worker's family the equivalent amount in rupees minus our small commission.
Oh, I see.
Ramzan Pai then hands the cash to the family. The two brokers settle their own debts with each other later, often through under-invoicing trade goods or other creative accounting. No money ever crossed a border. No bank was ever involved.
It's incredibly efficient, but because it's completely unregulated, is the lifeblood of organized crime, money laundering, and tax evasion. So Ramzan Pai isn't just a boss who cuts corners on his taxes. He is a sophisticated, highly organized criminal syndicate leader operating right out in the open.
The author describes Ramzan's operation with a brilliant local proverb. He says the elephant has one set of teeth for showing and another set for queuing.
I love that.
Right. He shows the financial district, his prize bonds, and his legitimate stock portfolio. But underground, he chews up the black market economy.
And walking completely unprepared into this lion's den is our victim. Let's talk about Shazlin.
Shazlin is a vital piece of this ecosystem. She is an elegant, charming, somewhat naive widow. Her husband, Hassan Ali, had been a successful businessman who tragically passed away 3 years prior to the events of our story.
And he left her very comfortable, right?
Comfortable is an understatement. He left her a luxury apartment 302 in the highly sought-after Diamond Apartments on Allama Iqbal Road, and a massive amount of liquid cash.
But as we often see in these deep dives, wealth combined with a total lack of financial literacy is an incredibly dangerous combination.
It really is. After her husband's death, Shazlin found herself incapable of running his actual business operations. So she began liquidating assets. She's sitting on a mountain of cash, she knows inflation will eat it if she just leaves it under a mattress, and she wants to invest.
But she has absolutely no idea how the financial markets operate.
None. She goes looking for a broker, and that search pulls her directly into the orbit of buy traders and right into the crosshairs of Ramzan Pai.
She becomes a regular fixture at the office. And this creates a really compelling dynamic between her and Adeel. Here's this wealthy, sophisticated older woman, and she could easily treat the 4,000 rupee a month accountant like the furniture. But she doesn't.
She treats Adeel with profound respect and genuine kindness. She speaks to him politely, she values his time, and Adeel, in return, develops a deep, silent, intensely respectful fondness for her.
It's a really sweet detail.
It is. The text is careful to note that his colleagues tease him about it, saying she favors him. It's not necessarily a scandalous, burning romance. It's more of a fierce, protective affection. He admires her grace, and he appreciates how she makes him feel seen as a human being, not just a human calculator.
Which makes the situation agonizing for Adeel, because he's sitting at his desk, silently admiring this kind woman, while simultaneously watching his boss, who is a ruthless cartel leader, start whispering into her ear about secret stock market riches.
Ramzan Pai is a predator, and he immediately recognizes exactly what Shazlin is. She is the perfect mark. She is a wealthy, financially uneducated widow, desperate for a safe place to grow her money.
The ideal target.
Precisely. He starts slowly reeling her in, laying the groundwork for a massive con. And Adeel, who understands the math of this office better than anyone, sees the jaws of the trap slowly opening.
This is where I find myself, and probably a lot of our listeners, getting frustrated with Adeel. Like, if you know you're working for the mafia and you see the mafia about to rob a woman you care about, why do you go back to that desk the next morning? Why doesn't he just quit? Or walk down to the local police precinct and blow the whistle?
That is the logical response of someone sitting in a safe, comfortable society with a strong social safety net. But we have to look at the systemic trap Adeel is caught in. Why doesn't he quit? We go back to October. The wedding.
Ah, right. The dowry.
If he misses even one paycheck, the delicate math of his sister's dowry collapses. The cultural shame of failing to provide for your sister's wedding in this context is completely devastating to a family's honor. He cannot afford the luxury of moral outrage if it means his family starves.
He is basically a hostage to his own poverty.
Exactly. And as for going to the police, remember who Ramzan Pai is? He is running massive hawala networks and illegal gambling rings right under the nose of the authorities on the most heavily policed financial street in the country.
Right, he's definitely paying people off.
Oh, without a doubt. He has money, he has muscle, and he has profound political influence. If a 25-year-old kid from a poor neighborhood walks into a police station and accuses a connected syndicate boss of fraud, the most likely outcome is that the kid simply disappears.
It's a brutal, pragmatic reality. Adeel has to keep his head down, process the ledgers, and survive.
But survival has a psychological cost, and his conscience finally hits a breaking point. Because Ramzan Pai isn't just asking Shazlin for a loan, he is deploying one of the most elegant, psychologically devastating cons in the history of finance.
I love pulling apart a brilliant scam. How does Ramzan set this up?
To truly appreciate the danger Shazlin is in, we need to break down the mechanics of this trap. Ramzan Pai's stock market scam is a masterpiece of manipulation because it doesn't rely on hacking or complex financial instruments. It relies entirely on weaponizing a fundamental flaw in human biology. Our desperate need to find patterns. We are pattern-seeking machines. When we see a sequence, we assume there is a genius or a hidden system controlling it. Ramzan exploits that. He starts by meticulously building a target list. He doesn't want average people. He identifies 40 incredibly wealthy individuals in Karachi.
So 40 people. Okay.
He's looking for the Goldilocks zone of victims. People for whom losing 1 or 2 million rupees is a sting, but not a total bankruptcy that would cause them to hire hitmen to come after him. They have excess liquid cash, and they have greed.
It's important to remember the era we're talking about here. This is a pre-digital trading world. Today, you open an app on your phone, you see the candlestick charts, you read the global news instantly. Back then, the stock market was this opaque, mystical machine to the average person. You relied on brokers, physical trading floors, and whispered insider information.
Exactly the environment where a con man thrives. Ramzan picks up the phone and calls these 40 wealthy targets one by one. He pitches them an incredibly seductive story. He says, I have access to a highly placed, completely infallible source inside the stock exchange, a whale who dictates market movements before the bell even rings.
See, if I get that call, my immediate thought is, if you have a golden goose, why are you calling me? Why aren't you just mortgaging your house and making the billions yourself?
And Ramzan anticipates that exact skepticism. He has the perfect counter ready. He tells them, look, my source only works on massive volume commission. I don't personally have the hundreds of millions required to make the trades he demands. I'm pooling capital to get access to the oracle.
Well, that's clever. It smooths over the logical objections.
But he knows these people are smart enough not to hand over 1 million rupees based on a cold call.
So what's the hook? How does he prove it?
He says, keep your money in your pocket. I don't want a single rupee from you today. I am simply going to prove to you that my source is real. Tomorrow morning, the stock for Company X is going to move. And here is the mechanical genius of the funnel. He takes his list of 40 people, and he splits it perfectly down the middle.
He divides and conquers.
He calls 20 people and says, Company X's stock is going to skyrocket tomorrow. Then he calls the remaining 20 people and says, Company X's stock is going to tank tomorrow.
He has no idea what the stock is going to do. He's just playing both sides of the roulette wheel.
Exactly. The next morning, the market opens. The stock does what stocks do. It fluctuates. It has to go either up or down. Let's say it goes up. For 20 people on that list, Ramzan's prediction was dead wrong. They chuckle, they assume he's an idiot or a fraud, they hang up, and they forget about him.
And Ramzan couldn't care less about those 20 people. They were just the cost of doing business.
Right. Because for the other 20 people, Ramzan Bai just looked into a crystal ball and called the future perfectly.
Wow. He has their attention now.
He calls those remaining 20 people back. He says, see? I told you, my source is real. Let's do it again. Still no money. Just watch the board. He splits the list of 20 again.
10 get told the next stock goes up. 10 get told it goes down.
The market moves. 10 drop out. But now he has a core group of 10 people who have watched this man make 2 consecutive 100% accurate, highly specific predictions about a chaotic market.
The psychological hook is sinking deep into their brains.
He runs the funnel one final time, He splits the remaining 10 into 2 groups of 5. Up and down, the bell rings, the market moves. At the end of this 3-step process, Ramzan High has filtered out 35 losers, but he is left with exactly 5 people.
Think about the reality those 5 people are living in. If you are one of those 5, you haven't seen a guy flipping coins. You have witnessed a financial deity make 3 consecutive impossible predictions.
What's fascinating here is that from Ramzan's perspective, it's just cold mathematical probability. But from the victim's perspective, it is pure magic. Their brains are flooded with confirmation bias. The pattern recognition software in their heads is screaming, "This man holds the key to infinite wealth."
And they are entirely blind to the 35 other people who got bad tips because they don't even know those people exist.
It's the equivalent of flipping a coin, getting heads 3 times, and concluding you have telekinetic powers. And the tragedy here is that Shazlin is one of those final 5 people.
Oh, no.
She has survived the funnel. She is utterly, unshakably convinced that Ramzan Pai's inside source is legitimate. She is so thoroughly hypnotized by the illusion that she goes to her bank and physically withdraws cash. And I need to stress the scale of this. She withdraws 500,000 rupees. In the local vernacular, that's 5 lakh rupees.
Just to clarify for anyone unfamiliar, in the South Asian numbering system, a lakh means 100,000. So 5 lakh is 500,000. And in the era we are discussing, drawing that much cash isn't just a high-value transaction, it's physically bulky. You are carrying stacks of currency that represent years of a normal person's salary.
It is a life-altering amount of money to have sitting in your apartment. She brings the cash back to Allama Iqbal Road, intending to hand it over to Ramzan the very next morning to buy into this infallible scheme.
And Adeel, sitting at his ledger, sees the final stages of the funnel closing around her. He knows she's the target. He knows the money has been withdrawn. He realizes that if he stays quiet for just 12 more hours, this graceful woman who treated him like a human being is going to be financially gutted by a mafia boss.
This is the catalyst. Adeel makes a conscious decision to override his survival instinct. He chooses what he later describes simply as human sympathy over his own physical and financial safety. He decides he has to blow the whistle.
Which sets the stage for a timeline that is going to be scrutinized down to the millisecond. This brings us to the evening of February 14th, Valentine's Day, the night everything goes completely off the rails.
Every single action on this night becomes a piece of circumstantial evidence, so we really need to map it out precisely. Adeel's shift at Pi Traders normally ends at 7:00 p.m., but accounting in a firm like this involves endless reconciliation, and he gets delayed. He finally packs up his desk and leaves the office on IRI Chandragarh Road at roughly 8:00 p.m.
But he doesn't point his motorbike toward home in Garden West. He rides straight for the affluent Allama Iqbal Road, pulling up to the Diamond Apartments at approximately 8:30 p.m.
We have to understand the architecture and security of the Diamond Apartments because this isn't a building you just wander into. It is a fortress designed to keep the wealthy residents safe from the chaos of Karachi. The perimeter is secured, there is a heavy gate, and there is a veteran armed security guard on duty named Ali Raza. He has manned that post for 15 years.
So he knows everyone.
Exactly. He knows every resident, every car, and every regular visitor.
You do not get past Ali Raza without clearance. It is the ultimate bottleneck.
Adeel parks his bike and approaches the reception desk. He gives his name to Ali Raza, Adeel Ahsan. He states he needs to see Madam Shazlin in apartment 302. Ali Raza picks up the internal intercom system and dials the 3rd floor.
Shazlin answers, but when the guard announces Adeel Ahsan, it doesn't immediately register. Which makes sense. She knows him from the office, probably just as, Adeel the accountant. The full formal name out of context is confusing.
Because of the confusion, Ali Raza physically hands the heavy intercom receiver to Adeel. Adeel speaks directly to her. He keeps it vague but urgent. He says, "Madam, it's Adeel from Pi Traders. The investment idea Ramzan Pai discussed with you today, there are massive hidden complications. I need to explain the mechanics to you immediately so you don't suffer a catastrophic loss."
The mention of Ramzan and the money instantly flips a switch for Shazlin. Her tone becomes serious. She instructs Adeel to hand the phone back to the guard, and she formally authorizes his entry.
Now, pay close attention to this next sequence of movements, because the devil is in the details. Just as Ali Raza gets the authorization, a resident's car pulls up to the outer gate, requiring access to the subterranean basement parking. The guard has to physically leave the reception desk, walk over, and operate the heavy gate mechanism.
Oh, wow. So he's distracted.
Right. Because of this distraction, Ali Raza does not hear the entirety of the intercom conversation. He only knows that Madam Shazlin said, Let him up.
Adeel walks past the desk, enters the elevator, and rides up to the 3rd floor. Shazlin is waiting at the door of apartment 302. She ushers him inside.
The dynamic inside the apartment is formal and polite. She guides him into the drawing room, which is a formal sitting area distinct from the private living quarters. They sit down at a heavy center table. In true South Asian hospitality, regardless of the urgency, she serves him tea and biscuits. They're sitting face to face.
And Adeel finally lets it all out. He deconstructs the illusion. He explains the funnel. He tells her about the initial list of 40 people. He explains how Ramzan simply split the groups, feeding contradictory information to each half.
He forces her to look at the mathematical reality. He says, "Madam, there is no oracle. There's no inside source. It is simply your profound bad luck that you happen to be one of the final 5 people for whom Ramzan's coin landed on heads 3 consecutive times. He is guessing, and he is using your confirmation bias to steal your money."
You can imagine the air leaving the room, the realization washing over her. But the shock quickly turns to overwhelming relief and gratitude. She understands the math the moment he lays it out.
She confesses to him just how close she came to the edge. She admits that the 500,000 rupees in cash are sitting right there in the apartment, bundled and ready to be handed over at dawn. She looks at Adeel and calls him an angel of mercy. She recognizes the immense risk he took coming to her.
Adeel deflects the praise. He tells her he simply couldn't let a decent person be robbed when he had the power to stop it. The tea is finished. The warning is delivered. Shazlin implies they should speak more about restructuring her finances later, which is a polite signal that the urgent business is concluded. Adeel stands up, says the goodbyes, and walks out of the apartment.
Let's lock in the timeline here. Adeel arrived at the gate at 8:30 p.m. He spent roughly 45 minutes inside the drawing room. He walks out of the lobby of the Diamond Apartments between 9:15 up and 9:03 p.m. Ali Raza, the guard, sees him exit.
And he even bumps into someone, right?
Yes. Furthermore, Adeel bumps into a resident he casually knows, a man named Sagir Hussain from apartment 201 down by the motorcycles. They exchange brief pleasantries. Adeel kicks his bike over, and he rides off into the Karachi night.
If we pause the story right here, Adeel is experiencing the peak of human satisfaction. He risked his livelihood, he did the right thing, and he successfully protected someone he cared about.
But the reality is that he has just unwittingly walked off a cliff. Because while Adeel is riding home, a horrifying sequence of events is unfolding back on Allama Iqbal Road.
Shortly after Adeel's taillights disappear down the street, a new visitor walks up to the security gate of the Diamond Apartments. It's a man Shazlin affectionately refers to as Uncle Afzal.
Uncle Afzal is a known quantity. He visits Shazlin frequently, maybe once a week. Because he is practically family, the strict security protocol relaxes. Ali Raza doesn't bother calling up on the intercom to announce him. They exchange a friendly greeting, and Afzal walks straight to the elevator and heads up to the 3rd floor.
But the relaxed atmosphere shatters just 10 minutes later. The elevator doors open in the lobby, and Uncle Afzal steps out, looking bewildered and anxious. He walks up to Ali Raza and asks, "Did Shazlin go out? Did I miss her?"
Ali Raza is confused. He shakes his head. Absolutely not. She's upstairs. In fact, she just had a visitor leave about 10 or 15 minutes ago.
Afzal looks panicked. "I've been pounding on her door. I rang the doorbell continuously. There's absolutely no answer, and the apartment is dead silent."
The veteran instincts of the security guard kick in. Ali Raza reaches for the intercom and dials apartment 302. It rings endlessly. No one picks up.
They know something is deeply wrong.
Yeah.
Ali Raza and Uncle Afzal decide they need authority, so they rush to the ground floor apartment of Dr. Junaid, the highly respected president of the building's residential committee. The 3 of them, the guard, the uncle, and the doctor, pile into the elevator and ascend to the 3rd floor.
They stand outside apartment 302. Dr. Junaid knocks loudly. Nothing. Finally, the doctor turns to the guard and says, "Try the handle."
Ali Raza reaches out, turns the brass handle, and the door clicks open. It hasn't been locked or bolted from the inside.
They push the door open and step into the silent, pristine apartment. They walk past the drawing room, noting the empty teacups on the center table. They move deeper into the apartment, down the short hallway, and step into the master bedroom.
And there she is.
Shazlin is lying flat on her back on the bed. Her eyes are open, but she is completely motionless.
Dr. Junaid, being a medical professional, immediately rushes to the bedside to check for a pulse, to look for signs of respiration. But it only takes a moment for him to step back, look at the other 2 men, and grimly confirm that she is dead.
The police are summoned immediately. The local precinct dispatches their investigating officer, Safdar Hussain. They secure the building, tape off the apartment, and the forensics team begins processing the scene. And what they assemble over the next few hours is a circumstantial case against Adeel Ahsan that is so airtight it feels almost suffocating.
Let's look at this through the eyes of Officer Safdar Hussain. Let's look at the purely objective, surface-level narrative the physical evidence is screaming at them.
Fact 1 is the timeline. The security guard and the resident in the parking lot confirm that Adeel Ahsan was the absolute last person seen with Shazlin while she was alive.
Fact 2 is the physical presence. In the drawing room, sitting on the center table, are 2 teacups. The forensics team dusts them. One cup is covered in Shazlin's fingerprints. The second cup is covered in Adeel's fingerprints. He was definitely sitting right there drinking tea with her.
Fact 3 is the murder weapon. The laboratory runs a rapid tox screen on the residue inside the teacups. They discover that the cup bearing Shazlin's fingerprints contains lethal traces of a highly toxic, incredibly fast-acting poison, potassium cyanide.
Fact 4 is the movement. Adeel's fingerprints are isolated to just his teacup. They find latent prints on the edge of the table on the back of the chair, proving he was moving around in that drawing room space.
And finally, fact 5, the motive.
Tea in the drawing room and fly to her bedroom where her body was actually found. Finally, the true culprits. Mirza totally exposes a plot between the scammer boss, a shady lawyer, and the uncle of Shazlin's late husband. The uncle sneaked in, poisoned her in the bedroom, staged the teacups to frame Adeel, and snatched the cash. Ultimately, it took brilliant logic to bust this flawless frame-up and prove that the most dangerous criminals weaponize the justice system itself.